Sunshine glowing on a turquoise sea. I'm swaying just for you and me. Island rhythm never leaves a trace, but it's tattooed on my soul's embrace. White sand stretch where the heart runs free. Laughter echoes on the island breeze. Steel drums playing on the moonlit trees. Moving easy, living out in fantasy. Antigua's calling so wild and free. Barbuda whispers, be here with me. Feel the vibe on the canopy. In this paradise you wanna be.
Mr. Chairman, we can proceed with the meeting.
Thank you, DSG. I am pleased to declare open this fourth plenary session of the 25th regular session of the General Assembly. The first item on the order of business is the question of the Malvinas Islands. As delegations are aware,
George Luis.
As delegations are aware, the General Assembly considers this an item annually in accordance with the Resolution 669 adopted in 1983, whereby the Assembly decided to continue examining this matter at its regular sessions until a definitive resolution is achieved. In this context, it is my honor to offer the floor to the distinguished head of delegation of Argentina. Excellency, you have the floor.
Señor Presidente.
Chair, dear heads of delegations, Mr. Secretary General, Mr. Assistant Secretary General, the Republic of Argentina is once again presenting before this OAS to reiterate its legitimate rights over the Malvinas Islands, South George Island, South Sandwich Island, and the nearby maritime spaces. And I would like to underscore the solidarity of the Americas in its staunch, constant support for the issue of the Malvinas. Year after year, this OAS has qualified the question of the Malvinas as an issue of permanent hemispheric interest, reiterating the need for the Republic of Argentina and the United Kingdom to return to negotiations in order to seek a peaceful, definitive solution to this prolonged dispute. Our staunch belief is that this dispute must be resolved through dialogue between both parties. It is unbreakable. Our rights are unquestionable and robust. They are intact, and the legitimacy of our demand has not been eroded by the passage of time. That is why it's relevant for us to recognize the early consideration of the question of the Malvinas in the inter-American sphere. This highlights the importance of decolonization for our entire hemisphere. And therefore, I highlight the background of the work by the Commission on Independent Territories created by the Bogota Conference and held in Havana in 1949, as well as the work of the Latin American Juridical Committee. The member states of the OAS have built historic consensus through commitment shouldered by its highest body, which is this very GA, in including the question of the Malvinas in its annual agenda until we reach a permanent solution to this controversy. Chair, for Argentina, the issue of the Malvinas is a true state policy. It is cross-cutting to all governments. This is a theme that brings together all Argentines. Our own constitution, the national constitution, the law above all laws, recognizes establishing in its first transitory clause that recovering that territory and full exercise of sovereignty, respecting the way of life of its inhabitants and pursuant to the principles of international law are a permanent and inalienable right of the people of Argentina. And this OAS knows the historic and legal background that support our legitimate rights. The Republic of Argentina, as the legitimate heir of Spain, has seen its rights attacked in 1810, and we have continuously exercised rights over the islands and the surrounding maritime area. This solution was interrupted decades later through the illegal occupation of the Malvinas Islands by the United Kingdom through an act of force, which was never consented to by my country. This year, we are commemorating 60 years since Resolution 2065 of the United Nations, which recognizes that the Malvinas Islands are in a situation of colonialism. And this is both special and particular, different to other cases of decolonization, given that we have a dispute over the sovereignty between Argentina and the United Kingdom. The General Assembly and Special Committee on Decolonization have always been very clear. The way in which the Malvinas were decolonized consists in bilateral negotiation between Argentina and the United Kingdom in order to achieve a peaceful solution to the dispute over the sovereignty that considers the positions and objectives of the UN Charter and the Resolution 1514, as well as the interests of the inhabitants of the islands. Chair, the United Kingdom continues to refuse dialogue and ignoring the free determination of the Britannic inhabitants of the Malvinas Islands. None of the resolutions on the question of the Malvinas adopted by the United Nations have ever included a reference at all to that principle. The United Nations have referred in every pronouncement to the interests of the population of the island, not their desires. Therefore, the UN confirms that the right to self-determination is not applicable to the issue of the Malvinas. On the other hand, we also put the destiny of that island in the hands of the power that it stalled itself there by force, perpetuating its rule in detriment to the sovereignty of a state and undermining the principles and foundations of decolonization. This does not mean that Argentina has been indifferent to the interests, the well-being, or the prosperity of those who live on the islands. Quite the contrary, our country has maintained and continues to maintain a constructive respect for the inhabitants of the Malvinas, considering their interests and respecting their way of life, which is reflected in our own national constitution. Chair, the United Kingdom not only refuses dialogue, they also continue to adopt unilateral decisions in the area of this controversy in direct violation of Resolution 31-49 of the General Assembly, which urges both parties to abstain from changing the situation so long as the dispute is unresolved. Among those actions, we would like to highlight maintaining a notorious military presence in the islands. This is incompatible with the character of the South Atlantic as a zone of peace and cooperation. To that, we add unilaterally and illegitimately holding census and concessions for exploiting natural resources, both renewable and non-renewable, particularly hydrocarbons and fishing resources. They are ignoring the sovereign rights of the Republic of Argentina here. Chair, I would like to thank the foreign ministers, heads of delegations, and representatives of the member states of the OAS for their ongoing support in this matter. I would like to conclude by stating that, as stated by Gerardo Huarte, the foreign minister, in a recent session of the Committee on Decolonization C24 at the United Nations, the Republic of Argentina reiterates its full willingness to returning to bilateral negotiations that are meaningful with the UK pursuant to Resolution 2065. Though negotiations have been interrupted, Argentina maintains bilateral relations of respect and cooperation with the United Kingdom. Against this backdrop, we consider that there are conditions favorable to opening a new chapter of dialogue, which allows us to constructively address the issues of our shared interests, including the issue of sovereignty. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I would like to once again thank you, and we always have to thank you in advance, to all member states for their support in this new draft resolution on the question of the Malvinas Islands, which is not only an issue for Argentina, but anyone who promotes a peaceful resolution to disputes and respect for international law. Thank you very much, Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Continuaremos.
We will continue with the interventions from the member states.
Aquí en la pantalla.
Here on the screen, we have Paraguay.
apretó mal.
Peru
Okay.
first.
Peru.
Peru. I apologize, says the Speaker. Peru. Chair of the GA, ladies and gentlemen. Peru has listened very closely to the presentation by Argentina, in which they expressed the legal grounds of their position with regard to the controversy over the Malvinas Islands. And Peru once again reiterates our call to the governments of the UK and Argentina to return to negotiations in order to reach a peaceful, constructive, and lasting solution to that controversy, pursuant to the resolutions of the United Nations and OAS. We insist on the need for both parties to abstain from adopting positions that introduce any unilateral modifications to the current situation of the islands, pursuant to Resolution 31-49 from the UNGA. Peru maintains our unwavering support to the rights of sovereignty that Argentina enjoys over the Malvinas Islands, South George Island, South Sandwich Island, and the nearby maritime areas. And Peru also has the great honor of submitting for consideration by the plenary the draft declaration on the question of the Malvinas Islands, which reflects the historic commitment of the OAS to a peaceful solution to that dispute. I will now read that draft declaration on the question of the Malvinas Islands. The GA, considering that on repeated opportunities it has stated that the question of the Malvinas Islands is an issue of ongoing hemispheric interest, remembering Resolution AG Res 928 adopted by consensus on the 19th of November 1988, which asks the governments of the Republic of Argentina and the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland to return to negotiations in order to, as soon as possible, find a peaceful solution to this sovereignty dispute. Considering that Resolution AG Res 1049 expressed its satisfaction with the return to diplomatic relations between those countries, and recognizing that the incorporation of the United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland to the OAS as a permanent observer state through Resolution CP Res 655 reflects the principles and values that we share between that country and the member states of this organization, allowing for greater mutual understanding. Noting that the governments of Argentina and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland maintain important trade, cultural, and political ties, share values, and also develop both close bilateral and international cooperation. Considering that despite those ties and shared values, they have not yet been able to return to negotiations with the intention of resolving the dispute of sovereignty between those countries over the Malvinas Islands, South George Island, and South Sandwich Island, and the surrounding maritime spaces in the framework of Resolutions 2065, 3165, 3149, 379, 3812, 39, 6, 40, 21, 41, 4, 42, 17, 43, 25 of the UN General Assembly. The decisions adopted by that same body over the same issue stemming from the Special Committee on Decolonization and the repeated resolutions and declarations adopted in this GA. And having heard the position of the head of the Argentine delegation expresses its satisfaction with the repeated statement of Argentina's willingness to continue exploring all possible avenues to seek a peaceful solution to this dispute, and due to its constructive attitude on behalf of the inhabitants of the Malvinas Islands, reiterates the need for the governments of the Republic of Argentina and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland to return as soon as possible to negotiations over the dispute over the sovereignty, with the aim of finding a peaceful solution to this prolonged dispute. to continue examining the issue of the Malvinas Islands in successive periods of sessions of the UN of the GA until we find a definitive solution. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We will now continue with Peru. Paraguay.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, we would like to thank you for presenting this draft declaration on the question of the Malvinas by the Republic of Argentina, and thank you to Peru. Paraguay, as a member of Mercosur, would like to read a pertinent paragraph of the latest joint communication from the presidents of the states parties of Mercosur and partners from December 7th, 2024, which states the following. The presidents of the Republic of Argentina, Javier Milei, the plurinational state of Bolivia, Luis Alberto Arce Catacona, the Federal Republic of Brazil, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, the Republic of Paraguay, Santiago Peña, the Republic of Uruguay, Luis Lacalle Pou, states party to Mercosur, and the high-level authorities of associated states meeting in Montevideo, Uruguay, at the 65th Summit of Presidents of Mercosur on the 6th of December, 2024. Reiterated the terms of the declarations of the states parties of Mercosur and the then Republic of Bolivia and the Republic of Chile, signed on the 25th of June 1996 in Puerto La Funes, Republic of Argentina, known as the Declaration on the Malvinas, and they reiterated their support for the legitimate rights of the Republic of Argentina in this controversy over the issue of the Malvinas and sovereignty. They reiterated the regional interest in resolving this prolonged dispute between the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the Republic of Argentina over the Malvinas Islands and the surrounding maritime areas as soon as possible, pursuant to the pertinent resolutions of the United Nations and the declarations of the Organization of American States and other regional fora and multilateral fora. Thanked the pro tempore chair for holding once again another meeting with the UN Secretary General in order to request that the UN renew its effort in fulfilling its mission from the UNGA and successive resolutions so as to renew negotiations aimed at, as soon as possible, seeking out a peaceful resolution to that controversy. Report on advancements made in that direction, and they also asked that the next pro tempore chair continue to provide follow-up on those issues. Thank you very much, Chair.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Seguimos con Chile.
Chile, please.
Señor Presidente.
Chair, Chile's position with regard to the Malvinas Islands has been expressed traditionally in favor of the many declarations and resolutions issued on this issue in many different fora and bodies, regional and international, and some of them were noted in the interventions that preceded me. Therefore, our country would once again like to take the floor to express our support for the legitimate rights of the Republic of Argentina in the dispute over sovereignty with the UK with regard to the issue of the Malvinas Islands, South George Island, and South Sandwich Island, as well as the surrounding maritime areas. We greatly value the relationship with the UK and the Republic of Argentina maintain, and both countries have important trade, cultural, and political ties. We urge the governments of the Republic of Argentina and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland to renew negotiations in order to find, as soon as possible, a peaceful solution that is permanent with regard to this sovereignty dispute and in line with pertinent UN resolutions and declarations from the OAS. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. We will continue with Bolivia. Thank you, Chair, Mr. Secretary General, ASG. The plurinational state of Bolivia totally fully and unconditionally supports the resolution presented in this GA, and we express our support for Argentina in the issue of the Malvinas, with the declaration commemorating the 60th anniversary of G27 plus China in 2024 in paragraphs 384 and 387. And I quote, "The ministers reiterated the need for the governments of the Republic of Argentina and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland to return to negotiations pursuant to the principles and objectives of the UN Charter and pertinent resolutions from the General Assembly in order to find as soon as possible a peaceful solution to the controversy over the sovereignty related to the question of the Malvinas Islands, South George Island, South Sandwich Island, and the surrounding maritime spaces." They expressed their satisfaction with the willingness of the Republic of Argentina to hold negotiations to that end, and they remembered Resolution 37-9, in which, among others, they urged the Secretary General to create a mission in order to assist these parties as they return to those negotiations. Along those lines, the ministers reiterated the principle of territorial integrity enshrined in Resolution 1514-15 of the UN General Assembly, and highlighted the right of member states of the Group of Permanent Sovereignty over Natural Resources, including the right of the Republic of Argentina to take legal measures while fully respecting international law and pertinent resolutions with regard to activities that have not been authorized with regard to prospecting and exploiting hydrocarbons in that zone, and reminded them of the need for parties to abstain from making any decisions that undermine or introduce any unilateral changes to the situation, so long as the islands are undergoing the process recommended by the UN system pursuant to its Resolution 31-49. Thank you very much, Chair.
Gracias.
Thank you.
A pasar la palabra.
The Dominican Republic. Thank you very much, Chair. Your Excellencies, distinguished representatives, delegates, the Dominican Republic would like to express its staunch support to the principles enshrined in international law in the Charter of the OAS, particularly respect for territorial integrity, peaceful controversy resolution, and commitment to definitively ending colonialism in all forms and manifestations. Against that backdrop, we reiterate our traditional and decisive support to the legitimate rights of sovereignty of the Republic of Argentina over the issue of the Malvinas Islands, South George Island, South Sandwich Island, and the surrounding maritime areas. This issue, as has been recognized on multiple occasions by this very GA and via the Special Committee on Decolonization at the United Nations, is a colonial situation that is particular and special in nature, and therefore it requires a peaceful, negotiated solution between the parties pursuant to Resolution 2065 of the UNGA, as well as the many resolutions that followed. We greatly regret that despite the many calls by the international community, they have not yet been able to return to bilateral negotiations between the Republic of Argentina and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Against this backdrop, we greatly value the efforts and staunch commitment of the Republic of Argentina to find a peaceful solution, and we underscore its willingness to engage in dialogue and focus on the interests of the inhabitants of the Malvinas. Therefore, the DR is pleased with the draft declaration on the issue of the Malvinas Islands, which is being submitted for consideration by this GA as regional consensus in this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now pass the floor to the delegation of Brazil.
Obrigado.
Thank you, Chair. Brazil would like to reiterate its staunch historic support for the legitimate rights of sovereignty of Argentina over the Malvinas, South Georgia Island, South Sandwich Island, and the surrounding maritime areas. And we remind you that on every opportunity we have expressed our respect for Argentina's right to sovereignty over the Malvinas, which is motivated by British occupation. And we saw this begin formally in 1933, and we have always expressed the irrefutable legal grounds of our position. And this is a particular special colonial situation which has been the case since 1833, and the population was installed following legal occupation of a sovereign independent territory, and we did not see the right to self-determination applied. And for Brazil and the international community, this was always Argentina. The South Atlantic is recognized by the UN as a zone of peace and cooperation, made up of 24 Latin American and African countries, and its creation included Brazil with Resolution 4111, which reiterates the peace, regional cooperation, and respect for the sovereignty of states. This year, we are commemorating 63 years since Resolution 3149 over the Malvinas, and we reiterate our staunch support for the mandate of good offices by the Secretary General, that he exercise that mandate and return to dialogue between Argentina and the UK as the most appropriate path toward resolving this controversy. And we also urge Argentina and the UK to return to negotiations bilaterally pursuant to the UN Charter. Brazil supports the constructive positions facilitating dialogue and leading to a negotiated solution with respect for international law and pertinent resolutions from the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, delegate from Brazil. I will now give the floor to the delegation of Guatemala. Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair. My delegation is happy to participate in considering this agenda item. We are pleased to have heard the declaration of the permanent representative of Argentina and the presentation of this matter concerning the Malvinas Islands. Guatemala fully supports the legitimate rights of the Republic of Argentina in the dispute over the sovereignty of the Malvinas, South Georgia, and South Sandwich Islands, and the surrounding sea since the beginning of the conflict. It is important that the Republic of Argentina and the UK, Great Britain, and North Ireland resume negotiations to arrive at a peaceful and permanent solution to this prolonged conflict. Chair, we applaud the constant show of political will by the Republic of Argentina to resolve this dispute according to procedures established in the Charter of the United Nations. At this juncture, we join in the reiterated call for the UK, Great Britain, and Northern Ireland to join negotiations again with Argentina. It's unfortunate that after all the calls from the international organizations, negotiations have not resumed. It is high time, and we are convinced that multilateralism must be given way so that the peaceful resolution of such controversy can be carried out. We hope that negotiations will resume as soon as possible.
I know.
Thank you very much.
Delegation of Suriname.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. I wish to acknowledge the presence of the Secretary General and the Assistant SG. I wish to briefly intervene on the matter of the Malvinas Islands. Suriname reiterates its long-standing support for the sovereign rights of the Argentine Republic in the matter of the Malvinas Islands. We believe that the question of the Malvinas is a matter that must be resolved through peaceful dialogue and negotiations between the parties involved in accordance with international law and relevant United Nations resolutions. Therefore, Suriname supports the continuation of dialogue and diplomatic engagement to achieve a just and lasting solution. I thank you, Chair.
I now invite the delegation of Costa Rica. Take the floor.
Chair, distinguished ambassadors, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, Costa Rica welcomes the Republic of Argentina's presentation of this statement on the matter of the Malvinas Islands, consolidating a matter that the Assembly has heard on many occasions as a matter of hemispheric interest. Our delegation backs the resuming of bilateral negotiations between Argentina and the UK, Great Britain, and Northern Ireland, pursuant to Resolution 2065 of the United Nations General Assembly, adopted on December 16th, 1965, which recognizes the existence of a dispute over sovereignty and urges both parties to resume negotiations to reach a peaceful resolution, taking into consideration the interests of the inhabitants of the islands. Costa Rica values the consolidation of the Argentinian government's will to explore all possible channels to resolve this controversy through peaceful means, as well as its constructive and respectful demeanor in terms of international law. We take note of the historic, cultural, and commercial links between both nations, which should be the foundation to facilitate genuine and sustained dialogue pursuant to the principles of the Charter of the OAS and the United Nations Charter. To close, we support the mandate of this General Assembly to continue reviewing the question of the Malvinas Islands in future sessions until we reach a permanent solution. Because we believe that multilateralism not only safeguards peace, it also keeps hope alive that this prolonged dispute will come to a solution through dialogue, mutual respect, and international law. This year, when we commemorate the 60th anniversary of the historic Resolution 2065 of the United Nations, we reiterate that time should not be an obstacle to justice. It should be a reminder of the commitment that brings us all together in favor of a peaceful and long-lasting solution. Thank you. Thank you, Costa Rica.
Pleases me to offer the floor to the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Antigua and Barbuda welcomes this draft resolution on the question of the Malvinas Islands, which is rooted in the United Nations General Assembly Resolution AG Res 2065 and its call to resume negotiations for a peaceful settlement. We note with satisfaction that the draft resolution before us reaffirms the will of the Argentine government to continue exploring all possible avenues toward a peaceful settlement of the dispute and its constructive approach toward the inhabitants of the Malvinas Islands. Mr. Chairman, Antigua and Barbuda has friendly and very close relations with both the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and Argentina. And we note that they already cooperate closely in political, cultural, and trade matters, demonstrating their capacity to work together in their mutual interest. We are convinced that they can draw on this cooperative experience to pursue a sincere dialogue that resolves this issue fairly and transparently, strictly adhering to international law. We remain convinced that meaningful negotiation and dialogue, sincerely conducted, can resolve all problems. Antigua and Barbuda urges both governments to resume negotiations without delay and to deepen their partnership across the many areas in which they are already engaged, transforming cooperation into lasting peace. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Antigua Barbuda. A pasar la palabra.
I now give the floor to El Salvador. Thank you so much, Chair. El Salvador reiterates its unwavering backing of the rights of the Republic of Argentina over the islands of the Malvinas, South Georgia, and South Sandwich, and the surrounding seas. El Salvador remembers that for over 60 years, some 60 years ago, the General Assembly adopted a resolution on Resolution 1514, and it has been nearly 60 years since 2065 was adopted, which characterized the Malvinas situation as a special situation where there is a dispute between the UK and Argentina, which is to be resolved between the parties through dialogue. El Salvador recognizes that this categorization has been reaffirmed on multiple occasions by the United Nations General Assembly, which is why we lament the fact that overall this time, since the adoption of these decisions, this prolonged dispute has yet to be resolved. Similarly, we recognize the will demonstrated by Argentina to resume bilateral conversations with a view to finding a solution to this sovereignty dispute. For El Salvador, the matter of the Malvinas, South Georgia, and South Sandwich Islands and the surrounding seas is a regional and global matter. Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, El Salvador. According to the screen, we will now give the floor to Ecuador.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you so much, Chair. Chair, distinguished ambassadors, vice ambassadors, everyone present here today, the Republic of Ecuador welcomes the statement given by the permanent representative of the Republic of Argentina. We echo the statements delivered by multiple member states who spoke before us. Ecuador has unwavering and historic support for the Republic of Argentina in this regard, expressed in all international fora, and takes this opportunity to further reaffirm the need for the governments of the Republic of Argentina and the United Kingdom to resume as soon as possible negotiations concerning the dispute over sovereignty, a dispute as defined by Resolution 2065 of the United Nations. Similarly, Ecuador welcomes the constructive attitude that the government of Argentina has had in terms of exploring all channels to arrive at a peaceful solution for this prolonged dispute, taking into consideration the interests of all the inhabitants of the Malvinas Islands, taking into consideration as well their culture. In that regard, Chair, Ecuador, and bearing in mind both the resolutions from the organization that is the United Nations, which have been around for quite some time, and the mandates that have been delivered through these General Assembly sessions within the framework of the Organization of American States, we adhere to the draft declaration on the Malvinas Islands, which has been brought up at this occasion during the General Assembly, and we appreciate the fact that this draft declaration was put forward by our sister Republic of Peru.
The Secretary General to address this agenda item.
Distinguished ministers and heads of delegation. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to make a brief but important intervention on this matter. We thank the head of delegation of Argentina, Ambassador Carlos Cerniak, for his statement regarding the Malvinas Island, as well as all the other heads of delegation of member states. Mr. Chair, we must not forget the fundamental principles related to territorial integrity. Argentina's sovereignty over the Malvinas Islands, South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands, and the surrounding maritime areas must be recognized through respect for international law, the declarations and resolutions of the multilateral system, and the integrity of the entire process. We call for the finalization of the remaining decolonization process and for the resumption of the constructive negotiations between the Argentine government and the government of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, in accordance with the relevant resolutions of the United Nations and the declarations of the Organization of American States. The General Secretariat reiterates its support for the current draft declaration, consistent with its long-standing position on this matter. We attach great importance to the expression of hemispheric solidarity with the Argentine Republic in this context, acknowledges the significance of continued and meaningful dialogue, and also reaffirm our commitment to peaceful and constructive engagement. The OAS Secretariat stands ready to facilitate this process of peaceful resolution. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. SG. I recognize the delegation of Uruguay.
Chair, distinguished delegations, the position of my country concerning the matter of the Malvinas is an invariable principle. We are consistent in terms of our foreign policy. Uruguay reiterates its commitment to the rights of sovereignty of the Argentinian Republic over the Malvinas, South Sandwich, and South Georgia Islands and surrounding seas. This is due to historic, legal, and geographic reasons. This matter involves a sovereignty dispute between Argentina and the UK. They are the only parties involved, and so the only solution can come from bilateral negotiations between both parties, taking into consideration the interests of the inhabitants of the islands pursuant to United Nations Res 2065. We believe in an approach between both parties and that constructive dialogue can be held between Argentina and the UK, which will allow us to accelerate towards a permanent, fair resolution to this conflict, taking into consideration all aspects to be borne in mind for the future of the islands. And so we request during this plenary that, as we do every year, the declaration be adopted by acclamation concerning the Malvinas Islands.
Thank you, Uruguay. I am pleased to report that the declaration, the question of Malvinas Islands, has been adopted by acclamation. Argentina. Adelante.
Gracias.
Argentina, go ahead. Thank you, Chair. When I was a child, my father told me that one of the most important things is to be grateful. So I would be remiss if I didn't do good on that principle that my father instilled in me when I was a child. I want to express my gratitude to all the ambassadors, to the heads of delegations, the representatives of the member states present here today, and namely to the Secretary General, Albert Ramdin, and particularly as well to those who have delivered statements. I will not forget that, and I will always be appreciative of that fact. On behalf of all the Argentinian citizens that I represent, for the support and the declarations concerning the Malvinas Islands, that the hemispheric call be renewed to resume negotiations and arrive at a peaceful, permanent resolution to this sovereignty dispute over the Malvinas, South Georgia, and South Sandwich Islands, as well as the surrounding seas. I ask each and every one of you that you imagine me standing up and giving you all a hug, because we value so much the support that you've shown. Chair, also allow me to thank you for the wonderful work that you've undertaken and the commitment you've displayed, your leadership, and the hospitality delivered by Antigua and Barbuda throughout this General Assembly. Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you, Argentina.
As announced earlier, we'll now move to item 3, the presentations from the organs, agencies, and entities of the OAS. On this item, we will receive presentations from the OAS organs, agencies, and entities whose participation was approved by the preparatory committee. Before proceeding to the first presentation, I would like to remind our distinguished speakers that in accordance with the agreement of the preparatory committee, the maximum time allotted for each statement is 5 minutes. This time allocation is based on the understanding that the annual reports have all been presented and considered by the member states within the framework of the Permanent Council and the relevant permanent committees at the OAS headquarters in Washington. I will offer the floor to delegations following the last presentation, which will be delivered by the Inter-American Children's Institute. That being said, it is now my pleasure to offer the floor to the President of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, Commissioner Jose Luis Caballero Ochoa. Señor Presidente.
Chair.
Adelante.
President, you have the floor.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning. Every Pachet Green, Chair for the 55th General Assembly and Minister of Relations, Migration, and International Trade for Antigua and Barbuda, Secretary General Albert Ramdin, ASG Nestor Mendez, heads of delegations, permanent representatives, alternate representatives of member states, observers to the OAS. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to deliver the annual 2024 report of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights in my capacity as president before this honorable General Assembly. Over 66 years, the Commission has contributed to consolidating a path towards protecting human rights in the Americas, consistent and independently of the political tides that come and go in our region. In 2024, we delivered 27 presentations on priority themes before political bodies within the OAS. And we displayed our achievements in terms of overcoming procedural setbacks. And we analyzed over 80% of the 2,900 petitions or requests received throughout the year. We adopted 121 base reports, 20% more than the year prior, on themes that are relevant to the Inter-American legal system. We continue to promote the use and follow-up of friendly solutions with the signing of 19 new agreements and the standardizing of 13 additional ones. We analyzed 95% of the over 1,400 requests of cautionary measures received throughout the year, and we conceded 77. We give protection to 7,500 individuals and groups at risk. We continue to modernize inter-American justice with the implementation of Gaia, an information system that increases transparency, efficiency, and the agility that we display when we process requests. We consolidated monitoring throughout the region by carrying out two important in situ visits in Colombia and Guatemala, 12 visits to promote and cooperate in multiple areas. We visited Brazil and Bolivia. We published country reports on Bolivia and Honduras and reports on states of exception in El Salvador towards an active transparency index on the emergency health context, as well as the inclusion of digital and governance content online. Through 330 press communiques and statements on social media, we brought timely visibility to multiple situations and violations of human rights. We developed 21 digital awareness campaigns which were seen by over 2.5 million people and which led to over 40,000 interactions on our social media. We held 210 promotion and training events, which were followed by over 34,000 people. We continue to work towards the Commission of the Caribbean, holding meetings with Caribbean states. We've had visits, working visits to Barbados and Belize. We've had bilateral meetings with different states, and we have carried out training for staff as well as civil society throughout Caribbean institutions in general. We continue to strengthen our technical cooperation with national human rights institutions, international bodies, namely the United Nations. We presented as part of this report the main trends in human rights observed in each country, Chapter 4A, and we include special reports on Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. We continue to promote dialogue with states, and we have a common position where we seek solutions to structural issues pertaining to human rights. We acknowledge state participation, that of civil society and international bodies in all these efforts, including in 98 public hearings. I conclude my brief statement by making a call to the defense and strengthening of our democracies, that we strengthen the bodies of the inter-American system because they are essential pillars to protecting human rights. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Now for the presentation by the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, presenter, Lieutenant Colonel Edward Croft, Director of the Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control Policy of Antigua and Barbuda. Colonel, the floor is yours.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegations, a pleasant good afternoon. As Chair of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, CCAD, let me add my warm welcome to those already extended to our beautiful country, and I hope that you have had time to enjoy some areas of our island. On behalf of CCAD, I extend heartiest congratulations to His Excellency Albert Ramdin on his appointment as the new Secretary General. I'm very pleased to note that your first official act in a plenary as Secretary General was done right here in Antigua and Barbuda, the heart of the Caribbean. Sir, I wish you a most successful tenure. I also acknowledge that yesterday, June 26th, the world recognized the United Nations International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, or World Drug Day, under the theme, Break the Cycle, #Stop Organized Crime. As Chair of CCAD, I am pleased to present the agency's 2024 annual report to this 55th session of the OAS General Assembly, being held under the theme, Building Resilient Inclusive Economies in the Americas. Drug control plays a vital role in fostering resilient economies by mitigating the multifaceted negative impacts of illicit drug trafficking, use, and misuse. It fosters sustainable development, improves public health and human capital, while strengthening governance and national institutions. In this regard, the work of the CCAD Executive Secretariat continues to impact the hemisphere through its demand, supply, and institutional strengthening programming, as well as the work of the MEM and the Inter-American Observatory on Drugs. Given the dynamic nature of the drug issue, CCAD is continuously working on new initiatives to strengthen the ability of member states to effectively address the drug problem, while also carrying out important work in collaboration with civil society organizations and international partners. However, as you are aware, CCAD is facing significant funding challenges which has affected its valuable assistance projects and programs to member states. I therefore take this opportunity to urge all member states of the OAS, as well as our observer states, to consider providing funding so that CCAD can continue to provide the robust technical assistance in all its programmatic areas. I cannot overstate the value that CCAD has added to our drug control efforts in this hemisphere. As a loyal and consistent partner, providing support to all our member states. Even as we acknowledge the work that was done in the past and continues today, we must focus on the future. In this regard, under the chair of Antigua and Barbuda, we are developing a relevant hemispheric plan of action for the period 2026 to 2030, which will provide a roadmap to increase security for our countries. This includes goals to reduce trafficking, disrupt transit routes, increase prevention, and reduction of the use and availability of dangerous drugs such as fentanyl and new psychoactive substances that are beginning to ravage our hemisphere. May I close by recognizing that no country is safe from the impact of drugs on our health and security until every country is safe. Therefore, the theme of this session, which aligns with the theme of the World Drug Day, underscores the fact that both can only be achieved if there is empirical data, meaningful analysis, collective responsibility, and strong commitment to the goal of making a positive impact on all our countries. This quote, attributed to Helen Keller, summarizes our collective commitment. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. As CCAD Chair, I affirm the commitment of the Commission to sustain an ongoing action to improve the lives of all citizens in the Americas. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel Koff. If ever there's precision, we saw it just now. I now invite the presentation from the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism, presented by His Excellency Carlos Guevara Mann. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Es un honor para la...
I'm honored, on behalf of the Republic of Canada, as Chair pro tempore of the Sikh Day for the period 2025-2026, to present the annual report of that body to the GA. For 25 years, OAS member states have counted on Sikh Day as the backbone of our hemispheric architecture for dialogue and cooperation to prevent, fight, and eliminate terrorism. I will share the main results for 2024. As far as cybersecurity, the Secretariat supported Belize, Paraguay, and Uruguay in developing their national strategies for cybersecurity and provided specialized courses on cybersecurity and cyber diplomacy with participation from over 158 diplomats from around the region. We organized 6 editions of CSIIT Week for incident response teams in Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominica, Mexico, and Paraguay. with practical trainings for managing incidents in cybersecurity. We also organized, along with institutions from the national level, 9 editions of the Chi Secures initiative, which is an online cybersecurity exercise with participation from 135 women from Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Guatemala, Mexico, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, and Uruguay. As far as disarmament and nonproliferation, the Secretariat of SIGDE, as regional coordinator of implementation of Resolution 1541/2024 of the UN Security Council, promoted cooperation with regard to global concerns on the proliferation of WMDs. Against this backdrop, we had technical assistance from Peru and Ecuador in their efforts aimed at strengthening their legal frameworks in this area, and we facilitated exercises between peers or peer reviews between Brazil, Chile, and Mexico related to implementing Resolution 1540. We also provided technical support to Costa Rica and Panama in their efforts to strengthen control of exports for items of dual use, and we also held a regional workshop for Latin America and another for the Caribbean on the risks associated with financing for proliferation. With regard to border management and managing shared spaces, the SIGDE Secretariat held a program through which we trained 313 civil servants from 27 member states in security of the civil aviation ecosystem. We provided specialized courses in cargo and container security with participation from 134 civil servants from around the region, including Colombia, Argentina, Ecuador, Jamaica, Panama, Peru, and Trinidad and Tobago. We provided technical support to 10 countries from the Caribbean in their efforts for security planning for events such as carnivals, festivals, and other cultural events. With regard to terrorism prevention, thanks to support from the SIGDE Secretariat and its strategic partners, we had many different specialized activities to promote hemispheric dialogue, the creation of capacities and cooperation to prevent terrorism. At those activities, we saw participation from over 800 civil servants from around the region and representatives of civil society. In 2024, the SIGDE Secretariat also held its Inter-American Network Against Terrorism, which is a platform with participation from 20 member states of the OAS. Executing those projects from the SIGDE Secretariat depends entirely on voluntary contributions from member states of the OAS, permanent observers, and institutional partners. The main donors of these projects carried out in 2024 were Canada, US, Mexico, Panama, Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the EU and UK. We reiterate our strong commitment to the work of the committee and organizations during the upcoming regular period of sessions. To begin in the first half of 2026, the special cross-cutting year for Panama because of the bicentennial of our antipatriotic conference, laying the groundwork for regional cooperation and integration. These are cross-cutting issues of today's multilateralism, and this is a great opportunity for us all to reiterate our commitment to the principles of peace, democracy, and collective security. Thank you very much. Thank you.
By the Inter-American Judicial Committee, presentation by Mr. George Rodrigo Bandera Galindo.
Chair of the 55th regular session, Chet Green, dear representatives of member states of the OAS, Albert Ramdin, Secretary General, Nestor Mendez, ASG, colleagues from other bodies. In 2024, the Inter-American Juridical Committee met twice from the 11th to 15th of March in Panama City in response to an invitation from the Panamanian government, and from the 7th to 16th of August at its headquarters in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. During this period, 3 reports have been adopted and submitted to this distinguished body of the OAS for their due consideration and information: the Guide on Applicable Law to International Investment Arbitration, the Report on International Customary Law in the context of the American continent, the Report on Participation of Victims in Criminal Proceedings against Acts of Corruption. In March of this year, the committee adopted a report on the exceptional nature of the use of force in the inter-American context. Currently, the committee has 10 topics on its agenda, having integrating a mandate from the GA on the international legal framework applicable to the impact of satellite constellations in the darkness of the skies, and 2 proposals from members, one regarding the selection and representativity in the framework of judicial independence, and another on the update of legal cooperation in the American continent in the area of criminal matters and extradition. Thank you to the states for their support in responding to questionnaires and commenting on our reports. And we urge those who haven't yet done so to provide follow-up on the 4 topics in consultations: the legal impact of rising sea levels, producing arms production and sales companies, representativity in the framework of legal independence, and AI.
The 49th International Law course was held in August of last year. It brought together 37 students and approximately 15 lecturers, including jurists, experts from international organizations, and professors from prestigious universities. Mr. President, with your permission, I would like to describe the events that will take place during our next regular session in August. 10th joint meeting with legal advisors from foreign ministries. A new in-person meeting will be held between August the 5th and the 6th with the legal advisors from the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, aimed at promoting direct dialogue at the highest level with those who advise on matters of international law. I emphasize the fundamental importance of this event for the development of international law on the continent. Therefore, I encourage all members of this plenary to facilitate the presence of your legal advisors in Rio de Janeiro. I also have the honor of announcing 2 other important events. On August the 5th, we will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the International Law course with the participation of alumni. On August the 6th, we will commemorate the 50th anniversary of the first Inter-American Conference on Private International Law, CDIP-1, with experts in this branch of law and members of ASADIP. I take this opportunity to express our satisfaction with the decision of the states to reserve an item for the committee in the proposed regular fund budget for 2026, seeking to re-establish the position of Secretary of the Inter-American Juridical Committee. I respectfully reiterate my request to allocate the necessary funds to fill this vacancy when the budget is adopted.
Please allow me, Chair, to conclude by recognizing the dedication, seriousness, and professionalism of the members of the Department of International Law. They work with the Technical Secretariat of the Inter-American Juridical Committee. Chair, ladies and gentlemen representatives, I am delighted to belong to this advisory body of the OAS, which has a group of such high-level jurists focused on international public and private law, and thank you very much for your time and attention. Thank you very much.
Obrigado.
Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to offer the floor to Judge Nancy Hernandez Lopez, President of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. Madam President, welcome. You have the floor.
Muy buenos días. Muchas gracias.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Chair of the GA, Mr. Secretary General, authorities at the table, ministers of foreign relations, heads of delegations, permanent observers, special guests. First of all, Thank you very much to Antigua and Barbuda for your hospitality. Thank you to your leaders. I'd like to congratulate you for the warmth and beauty of your people, and I'd like to take this opportunity to tell the Secretary General that we wish him the very best and most success in his endeavors. Pursuant to Article 65 of the American Convention, and on behalf of my colleagues, judges of the court, I am appearing before you to report on the main activities carried out by the court over the last year. I don't have a lot of time available, so I will be summarizing the most relevant aspects of our work. In 2024, the Inter-American Court reiterated its vocation of justice with a priority on its jurisdictional function and responding rigorously to the growing challenges faced by our region. We held 8 regular periods of sessions and 1 special period. This allowed us to respond to an increasingly complex and growing demand. We issued about 20% more rulings compared to the prior year, which was a historic record for the court. Add to that 16 resolutions on provisional measures, and in the area of supervision of fulfillment of rulings, we made concrete progress in implementing various rulings with over 100 measures partially or entirely fulfilled in 12 countries, as noted in the annual report. In all, we held 32 public hearings for contentious cases, advisory opinions, and compliance supervision, and we also held sessions for 22 weeks, some of them away from HQ. And for each of these weeks, as you all know, we need the equivalent amount of time for preparation and study, and that is why the current caseload is almost full-time. This year will also be very intense, as we have scheduled 11 of the 12 months of the year for sessions. We've also found that we are working closely with national realities, and this is fundamental in order to bring inter-American justice to the peoples of our continent and to get to know firsthand their realities and challenges. And that is why we have a policy of remaining present on the ground in the states in order to hold public hearings, supervision of compliance, and legal due diligence in situ. I'd like to highlight the sessions held in 2024 in Barbados and Brazil. This year, we will be holding sessions in Guatemala, and in September, we will be doing the same in Paraguay. Just a few days ago, several members held an official visit to Bolivia, and we would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Republic of Canada for their invitation to hold a period of sessions there next year. But all of this work does not leave a shred of doubt that 2024 will go down in history by the unprecedented drive for advisory opinions. We held historic public hearings on 3 key requests, of which 2 have already been deliberated and resolved. One on the climate emergency, which is the most participative advisory process at the courts. It will be notified on July 3rd, and it requested 5 months of deliberations at different points, and we also deliberated on the right to care and requested an advisory opinion presented by Mexico on the state responsibility in face of the arms industry, which already has held many spaces for deliberation, will be resolved in the second half of the year. These are issues that, without a doubt, have a profound impact on the legal and political future of our region. We also announced that Guatemala presented an advisory opinion on a key issue for the region, that is democracy as a right and its content and scope. The time period to participate and present comments expires on October 3rd, and we invite all of the state's organizations and academia to participate in this very important dialogue. Beyond institutional progress in 2024, we also worked on consolidating legal precedents, and the court deepened its standards in key areas for the region, such as political rights, democracy, and electoral integrity. Cases such as Capriles versus Venezuela and Gadea versus Nicaragua were a milestone in developing for the very first time this idea of electoral integrity as a guarantee stemming from the Inter-American Convention. And these decisions underscored the need for transparent, independent electoral processes with access to real justice, while they also denounced the progressive capture of fundamental institutions such as electoral bodies. The court also moved forward in its jurisprudence on non-discrimination and equality in the areas of women's rights and economic, social, and cultural rights, and it also was very staunch in its precedents in the face of very serious human rights violations. Please allow me to give you a brief message. Ladies and gentlemen, the freedom we fought so hard for in our region is not something that is decreed, it is built. And it can only be built when power is subject to law, where we respect human dignity and the principles of democracy are enshrined in public policies, strong independent institutions, and citizens who are well informed and able to criticize. Today, more than ever, our region needs to strengthen and support the institutions that defend liberty and human dignity. This is not the time for wavering or leaving vacuums, which without a doubt will be filled by those who hate freedom and democracy. On the contrary, when we have justice and diplomacy working hand in hand, not only are we able to respond to things, we're able to transform. Not only do we provide reparation, we prevent. We don't only watch the present, we build the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President. I now offer the floor to Mr. Nicholas Lensens, Deputy Regional Director of the Americas of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Mr. Lensens, welcome. The floor is yours.
Mr. Secretary General Ramdin, Assistant Secretary General Mendes, distinguished delegates, ambassadors, and esteemed guests, it is an honor to address this General Assembly on behalf of the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC. I would like to thank the Organization of American States, particularly our colleagues at the Permanent Mission of Brazil, for offering the ICRC this opportunity to speak on a subject that lies at the very heart of our mandate and mission: international humanitarian law, also known as the Rules of War, or IHL. This region has long demonstrated deep respect for these rules. Your nations have been champions of human dignity, protection of civilians, and peace grounded in law. This commitment is not new, it has roots in your history. Even before the Geneva Conventions, Simón Bolívar foresaw the need for humanity in war. In 1820, his revolutionary forces and the Spanish Empire signed the Treaty on the Regulation of War, aimed at protecting both soldiers and civilians during armed conflict. This pioneering treaty marked a humanitarian milestone, laying the ground for what would later become international humanitarian law. And that vision is part of the DNA of this region. It remains more relevant than ever today. In that spirit, I am pleased to present the Global Initiative on International Humanitarian Law, launched by the ICRC in September 2024, in partnership with Brazil, China, France, Jordan, Kazakhstan, and South Africa. This initiative is a response to an alarming global trend: the growing gap between IHL obligations and the very harsh realities of modern warfare. We are witnessing all too often conflicts marked by disregard for basic rules, where hospitals are being attacked, civilians are targeted, and human suffering is allowed to deepen without restraint. The goal of this global initiative is simple but urgent: to revive and strengthen political commitment to international humanitarian law, globally, regionally, and nationally. It brings together states, experts, military actors, civil society to tackle real challenges and deliver concrete recommendations to better protect civilians. This initiative is not meant to create new humanitarian norms or law, rather it seeks to restore their respect. 7 work streams guide this effort: good practices to prevent violations of IHL, the role of national IHL communities, the link between IHL and peace, protecting civilian infrastructure, protecting hospitals and health services in armed conflict, information and communication technologies used in armed conflicts, and naval warfare. We are proud today that many countries in the Americas are playing a leading role, including Brazil as a core member of the initiative. Colombia, Costa Rica, Mexico, Peru, and Uruguay are actively engaged in work streams, contributing valuable experience and perspective. Today, I invite other countries and states to join them. This is a unique opportunity for the Americas region to shape global IHL policy and ensure that your priorities are reflected in international law discussions. Your voices are needed to help steer the world back to the fundamental idea that even in war, there are limits. This effort will culminate in a high-level meeting to uphold humanity in war in 2026. So we hope to see many of your governments there, bringing commitments, ideas, and energies. Distinguished delegates, the International Committee of the Red Cross has been present for many decades on the Americas continent. It has been accompanying states and assisting populations affected by conflict or violence. It has offered its neutral intermediary role and its expertise in critical issues such as detention or missing persons. In partnership with the OAS, we have always worked to promote peace through the integration and respect for international norms. Today, let us stand together to protect what unites us, the belief that war must not be lawless, and that preserving human life and dignity is never an option. The global initiative on IHL is more than a process, it is a call to conscience, a call to act now and for future generations. So thank you for your leadership and your shared commitment to humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Director. It's now my pleasure to offer the floor to President of the Board of Directors of the Justice Studies Center of the Americas, Mr. Bruno Novoa Campos. Mr. President, you have the floor.
Chair, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished delegations of the member states, the Justice Studies Center of the Americas, known as CEJA, is the specialized body with the main mission of supporting processes for reforming and modernizing justice systems in the Americas. Thus, CEJA has provided technical assistance to governments, judicial powers, public ministries, attorney general's offices, and other institutions in the justice system. We have drafted technical studies and facilitated cooperation processes at the regional level, and we have also provided a large number of specialized training sessions throughout the entire region. This year, CEJA is commemorating 25 years since its creation, and against that backdrop, we underscore the role that CEJA has played in strengthening democracy and the rule of law in the Americas, as well as in promoting more efficient, transparent, and inclusive justice systems, particularly those aimed at addressing the needs of the most vulnerable populations of our region. Over 2 decades of ongoing work and pursuant to the mandate received via Resolution 3929 of the General Assembly, CEJA has been working to draft a roadmap to strengthen collaboration with various OAS bodies. This includes the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, the Secretariat for Access to Rights and Equity, the Secretariat for Strengthening Democracy, the Inter-American Commission on Women, the Department of International Law, and the Department Against Transnational Organized Crime. To all of these, on behalf of CEJA, we would like to express our institutional gratitude for their willingness to work hand in hand. Unfortunately, Chair, in this very meaningful space, we would also like to express our deep concern due to the various challenges that continue to beset the justice systems of our region. Among others, they include the following issues: the process for electing judges, judicial congestion, the strategic management of legal offices, administrative simplification or the lack thereof, and the pending application of new technology in justice services, the lack of execution of legal resolutions at the inter-American and national levels, legal independence, and unfortunately, the high rates of corruption still. That is why we respectfully request that we consider the possibility of including as the theme of an upcoming parallel event the issue of justice in the Americas, challenges and problems. We staunchly believe that focusing our attention on our region's justice system will allow us to bring together the best legal experts of the Americas, academia and civil society, in coordination with other legal systems in comparative law and with the institutions involved themselves in the justice system. We believe that then we will be able to present concrete solutions and proposals for the issues arising through technical work, academic work, as well as independent work at the highest level. Respect for the independence of justice systems may eventually implement them. If we're able to make this a reality, CEJA is committed to working decisively to support that aim. Finally, but last but not least, we invite the delegations of member states and permanent observers to provide us or continue to provide us with their priceless support through voluntary contributions, which are so essential to ensuring our institutional sustainability. But above all, they are so essential for strengthening justice systems, democracy, and strict respect for human rights in the Americas. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor Presidente.
Thank you very much.
The floor to Dr. Amalia Del Riego, Power Representative in Barbados and Eastern Caribbean countries. Dr. Del Riego, welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Excellency, Honorable Everly Green, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Affairs of Antigua and Barbuda, and President of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States. I recognize His Excellency, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Albert Ramdin, Your Excellency, Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Nestor Mendez, Honorable Ministers of Foreign Affairs, permanent representatives and permanent observers, colleagues at the Organization of American States and other organizations, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is an honor to address the 55th General Assembly of the Organization of American States on behalf of the Director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Jarbas Barbosa da Silva, Jr., who most sincerely wished to be here, but is currently participating in PAHO's Executive Committee meeting. Dr. Barbosa sends his most respectful regards. PAHO extends its sincere appreciation to Antigua and Barbuda for hosting this assembly. I also warmly congratulate Secretary General Ramdin and reaffirm PAHO's commitment to working closely with the OAS under his leadership. Mr. Chair, health and well-being anchored in robust national health systems are foundational to inclusive, resilient economies. The Americas continue to face challenges from fragmented and underfunded health systems. Combined with persistent inequality, labor informality, and urbanization, this fragility leaves our economies especially vulnerable to health crises. Caribbean countries confront added risks from climate change, extreme weather, and heavy reliance on imported goods and health supplies. Therefore, building a stronger and more inclusive economies requires prioritizing health system strengthening and regional cooperation to advance health security. We must work together to prevent and respond to cross-border threats such as emerging infectious diseases that endanger both public health and economic development. Señor Presidente.
Chair, allow me to continue in Spanish. 2 key days to strengthen our health systems and at the same time promote economic inclusion would be 2 ways. Increase public investment in health and reduce the financial burden on people. Currently, public spending on health in the region only represents, on average, 3.7% of GDP, significantly below the recommended 6%. As a result, people take on over a third of health costs. It comes out of their pockets, which leaves 95 million people taking on catastrophic amounts of costs and 12 million more left in poverty. To face this challenge, the PAHO is working closely with member states to strengthen national health systems and contribute to more resilient and inclusive economies in the following ways. First off, PAHO continues to promote primary care in health to broaden access to services, as well as through facilitating dialogue among health authorities as well as economic authorities to promote health-centered development. These efforts progress in collaboration with key partners like the Inter-American Development Bank and the World Bank through initiatives like the Alliance for Primary Health Care in the Americas. Secondly, our regional initiative to eliminate disease with a view to eliminating over 30 communicable diseases by 2030, in addition to strengthening health security, will contribute to a healthier and more productive labor force. Thirdly, regional rotating funds from PAHO, which act as a mechanism for joint vaccine acquisition, health products and technologies, allow for cost-effective access to quality in order to increase efficiency and effectiveness of public health spending in member states. At the same time, this generates an ecosystem that promotes the regional production of health products and reduces dependence on other regions, which increases access for all member states. Alongside national efforts and key partners, all these initiatives seek to bolster health security in our region, while setting a foundation for more inclusive and resilient economies.
Antigua and Barbuda's leadership on mental health. Their commitment has been evident through the resolution on mental health adopted at this assembly, which is a significant step in addressing one of our most urgent health challenges. It will also contribute to economic development, as mental well-being is inextricably linked to productivity, inclusion, and resilience. PAHO also congratulates the government of Antigua and Barbuda on the development of the new mental health care bill, which modernizes the legal and institutional framework governing mental health services. This is a vital move to ensure quality of care for all. Finally, we would like to thank our partners, especially the United States, Canada, the European Union, Spain, and the United Kingdom, as well as others who have become important partners to the region, including Korea, Japan, and India. We encourage other countries and organizations to join us in our collective efforts to advance health in the hemisphere. In closing, let me reaffirm PAHO's commitment to working with the OAS, its member states, and regional partners to build a healthier, more inclusive, and resilient region of the Americas. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Del Rego. I now offer the floor to the Peruvian Air Force Major General Cesar Augusto Mesero Garcia, Presidency of the Council of Delegates of the Inter-American Defense Board. Mr. President, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Señor Presidente.
Chair of the General Assembly, heads of delegations, Secretary General, distinguished permanent representatives, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to speak before you as President of the Council of Delegates of the Inter-American Defense Board at this, the OAS's General Assembly at its 55th regular session. The way that the world has changed led to the creation of the board in 1942. Starting in 2006, the Inter-American Defense Board was created as a consultative, technical, and educational body of the OAS, an organ of the OAS. The board, integrated in the Inter-American system and fully aligning with the OAS Charter, works under the supervision of civil institutions through accountability criteria. Throughout 2024 to 2025, the board fulfilled the mandates delivered to it, promoting technical cooperation, interoperability among state entities, and strategic education at the highest level, focused on strengthening societies that are safer, more inclusive, and more resilient. From the board, we ratify our respect and commitment to the 4 pillars of the OAS, which also guide our actions to contribute to our society's well-being. Given the constant changing state of threats like transnational organized crime, natural disasters, and emerging risks that affect our societies, we reiterate our willingness to provide a technical assessment in defense and security as OAS mandates request, and member states. The multiple themes discussed during this forum reaffirm the importance of having institutions and effective cooperation mechanisms, as well as a timely response capacity. Our appreciation goes out to the countries of the Americas for helping us with financial resources as well as staff, the most important resource there is. Personnel from the armed forces, from public security, and civil professionals provide us all kinds of support every year. The Council of Delegates of the board that I chair acts with the principles of multilateralism and ensures the fulfillment of the mandates of the OAS through the Secretariat of the board, which Reinaldo Salgado of Brazil is in charge of, as well as Major General Richard Haitkamp from the United States. As an alum of the Inter-American Defense College, I can speak on how important this is. Education allows us to understand the complexity of our countries and the key role that the OAS plays in peace and regional development when it comes to training civil and military leaders committed to the region. With the permission of the Chair of the Assembly, I want to give the floor to Reinaldo Salgado.
Senhor Presidente,
Chair, and all the other authorities already mentioned, on behalf of the Secretariat of the Inter-American Defense Board, it is a great honor for us to express our appreciation to all the permanent representatives and the delegations for the constant institutional support for the activities of the IDB. We also highlight with great appreciation the support delivered throughout the process of designation for our new home, La Casa del Soldado. This progress is a major step forward for the board. It symbolizes not only a change in terms of our physical location or how our logistics work, it is the beginning of a new institutional cycle marked by greater integration with the OAS, and this strengthens technical cooperation and the broadening of results delivery for member states. In this new landscape, the board is living a true transformation, and this allows us to promote initiatives in priority regional impact areas. It's important to highlight a unique characteristic of the board. Its structure is made up of military personnel funded by the member states, which ensures our budget and our institutional sustainability. In the last year, the Secretariat decided to make great achievements in developing a hemispheric mechanism, which we displayed during Mercodex in 2025 in Guyana. We have a seminar program that allowed us to reach greater parts of the hemisphere. We have had programs on women, peace and security, migratory flows, and that content was seen by over 20,000 people in multiple countries, which shows the increasing interest in themes promoted by the board. This shows not just the reach of our initiatives, but also the dynamism and our ability to adapt as a board to current challenges. With this new structure and our eyes set on the future, we reiterate our commitment as an institution that is increasingly integrated, more efficient, and fully dedicated to the promotion and strengthening of hemispheric trust and security. Thank you very much.
I thank the representatives of the IADB and now offer the floor to Her Excellency Niurka Palacio, Minister of Women of Panama and President of the Inter-American Commission of Women. Excellency, welcome. You have the floor.
Buenas tardes a todas y a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor to speak before this General Assembly of the OAS in my capacity as the President of the Inter-American Commission on Women to present our annual report. I take this opportunity to express my full wishes of success to the new Secretary General and to fully express my appreciation to the ASG for a decade of commitment to the rights of women and institutional strengthening for the institution. I also want to celebrate Ms. Laura Hill's election to the role of ASG. Today I speak on behalf of the institution, on behalf of the valuable team that accompanies me, and also in representation of the ministers of Chile, St. Lucia, El Salvador, Antigua and Barbuda, Brazil, Canada, Honduras, and Uruguay, who make up the directive committee of the Institute. My appreciation goes out to all of them. I also want to greet Honorable Senator Alincia Williams Grant, Senate Chair and for Antigua and Barbuda. We just celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Convention of Belém do Pará, the 20th anniversary of the mechanism of follow-up, the Mississippi, which gives life to the instrument. We keep a firm commitment to the construction of fair, equal, and safe democracies and societies for everyone. We cannot lose all the progress that we've made over time. We are working to make sure that equality is a reality and that women can exercise their full rights in every area. As a pillar of the Inter-American System of Human Rights, we have received mandates from the OAS, from the Summit of the Americas, from the Permanent Council, for the Assembly of Delegates of our institution, of the state parties of the Convention of Belém do Pará. These mandates have not always come hand in hand with financial support, so we have had to redouble efforts and make innovative proposals to present to the partners that have always accompanied us. And I want to thank all the member states here who have made contributions to our efforts, and say that before all members of the OAS and who have believed in our capacity. I hope you continue to work with us. In 2024, we broadened our scope through training sessions to over 180 women. And for the first time, one of these courses was for indigenous women in Latin America and another one for women in the English-speaking Caribbean. We have also, within MESEDIC, presented recommendation number 5 concerning violence against Afro-descendant women. Over 1,500 women have registered with us, and we have been working to increase their capacity for effectiveness. We work to take on an active role. We work to have them take on an active role in all types of social affairs. The need to generate knowledge to advance our agenda for equality led to alliances with universities throughout the region, with a view to strengthening diplomacy of equality alongside the ministries for women. We held participatory diagnostics on gender among embassies in the Dominican Republic and Honduras. We have helped to define model laws on parity, financial inclusion, labor force integration, and on violence, gender-based violence facilitated by technology. We have launched lots of initiatives with great support. I don't want to close without mentioning the current situation. Now that the SIM will have existed for 100 years, we understand that the equality agenda is being undermined. Women throughout the Americas are telling us so. And in my capacity as the chair of the SIM, I want to make a call to member states so that we will support the strategic efforts of the SIM, which today more than ever must be strengthened, given resources, and acknowledged as the strategic space within the OAS to lead an agenda of equality and to promote women's rights throughout the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I now offer the floor to the Director General of Inter-American Children's Institute, Ms. Maria Julia Garcete Jegros. Madam Director, I welcome you. The floor is yours.
Buenos días a
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Inter-American Children's Institute, and on my own behalf, I want to thank the authorities of Antigua and Barbuda for hosting this event and for giving us a warm welcome. I feel so fortunate to get to represent the voices of boys, girls, and adolescents in 13 countries. It's an honor, but it's also a huge responsibility to be in a space which historically has been reserved almost exclusively to adults. I thank Maria Julia Garcete, the director of the Institute, for giving me a bit of her time. Often it's thought that as adolescents, we don't really understand what happens around us, but the truth is that our realities, our concerns, our needs are no less valid. They're different, yes, but they're just as important. For us to participate genuinely, we need to ensure that these spaces are adapted to our way of expressing ourselves, how we converse, and how we share ideas. When that happens, we feel more comfortable, we feel more heard, and we can talk about who and what we really are. I want to be honest. Participating in these spaces is not easy if you don't have support. The presence and support of our families is key. I recognize the importance given to mental health in this forum, and that's fantastic because it's something we deeply care about. In order for us to fully flourish, we need to talk about that more. We need to be heard. We need to be supported. No one should feel excluded for talking about how they feel. Similarly, making adequate use of technology can be beneficial. It allows us to have time for other important activities like living in harmony with our families. Additionally, I think it's important that we promote an interest in participating actively at an early age. But in order for that to happen, we need real opportunities, we need safe spaces, we need funds, not just for us, but for our families, those caretakers that walk alongside us on this path. Thank you for opening this door for us. Now, the time has come to listen to us, not just as the future, but as part of the present. Thank you.
Toru hauapenen dive koarape buruisha hashangiruquera. Este saludo en mi
This greeting in my native tongue of Guarani means gratitude and happiness to all of you on this day, authorities and colleagues, staff members. From the Institute, I would like to welcome this first participation of children and adolescents throughout the Americas at this assembly. I speak to you with the deep conviction that you cannot talk about building resilient and inclusive economies, much less about mental health, without recognizing the fundamental role that girls, boys, and adolescents play as social, political, cultural, and economic actors throughout our continents. From the Institute, with over 80 years of institutional history, we are convinced that participation of our youth is not a symbolic gesture. It's a sacred right enshrined in the convention and an essential component of inter-American democracy, where they make up 30% of the population. We're 25 years into the 21st century, and more than ever, we need to solidify a vision of development that includes the voice, the experience, and the creativity of new generations. Because an inclusive economy cannot be built purely from macroeconomic indicators. It has to be based on dignity, ensuring people's rights, structural equity, and active participation of all sectors of society. In that regard, we celebrate the experiences that are being consolidated among member states from the Korea, Surga, Rednasem networks, the thematic organized groups, and intergenerational spaces promoted through the 4th Pan American Forum for Girls, Boys, and Adolescents. And having your presence in these networks and talking about them in the Permanent Council, celebrating Inter-American Children's Day, this all shows that when you create mechanisms and spaces for horizontal communication, for participation, our youth doesn't just give its opinion, they bring about transformation. The inclusion of girls, boys, and adolescents in the processes of, in decision-making processes is not just a matter of justice. It is an intelligent strategy to strengthen our democracies, bring dynamicity to our economies, and build societies that are resilient in face of the challenges of the 21st century, where exclusion from educational, health, and protection systems generate new vectors for organized crime. And that is why we urge states to progress towards the institutionalization of participation mechanisms in an organic fashion, that they invest in public policy that acknowledges our youth as having rights, and to ensure that their voices are heard, considered, and respected at all levels. Let's consolidate love and the principle of a higher cause that we so often preach, because we can't have sustainable development without rights, and you can't have full rights without dignity or participation. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Deferred interventions until after luncheon interval. In other words, we take our break now. It's 12:55. 2-hour break. Return here at exactly 3 p.m. We return at 3 o'clock, and upon our return, we will hear the interventions to the preceding submissions before we go into the final agenda item for the day, which is the elections, which I know you're all waiting for. So, we rise for lunch.